We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new form of government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. This sounds incredibly familiar. Usurpations, governments releasing prisoners while jailing business owners, jailing people trying to go to the gym and exercise their liberty, creating a situation where people are laid off, where people have lost their jobs due to these shutdowns. A man had the cops called on him for writing a bad check. Because of this bad check, he is now dead. I think a lot of people are failing to ask the question, why was he writing a bad check? Was he writing it just to be malicious? Or was he writing it because he is out of work, because the business that he was making a living from was shut down because of the flu? This is what Officer Greg Anderson was warning about.
And that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that these actions are going to wake a sleeping giant, i.e. the American people, okay? They are going to be put in a position where they won't have their rights trampled anymore. And us as law enforcement officers, we'll have our ability to enforce the law stripped from us in about 10 minutes, okay?
They shut this man's business down. This man was looking for a new job, trying to make ends meet. And maybe he shouldn't have been writing a bad check, but does that mean that he had to die? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mr. Floyd was not even trying to pursue the happiness portion. He was simply trying to survive in the situation that the government thrust him into. And now he has perished. Will justice be served? Probably not. We've seen in the past situations with lots of other cops that did bad stuff and they get fired, they get some marks on their record, but guess what? At the end of the day, they still get to live their life. George Floyd was not afforded that. Why was his murder not stopped? The simple answer to that is fear. Those people held their phones and didn't step in, and I can see why. As unarmed citizenry, it is hard to want to challenge officers that have a variety of tools. The one officer threatened to use mace, and I'm sure if the situation escalated, he would have pulled out his gun. But let me tell you something. Every American has the right to self-defense. Cops are merely citizens. They put on a badge. That badge is a representation of the power that the people have given them. They are not higher than us, and they have to answer to us. We pay their paychecks. It is our tax money that goes into their bank accounts. And it's for that reason that you have the power to step in. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And I can tell you right now, if it was me lying in that street and my wife was watching me be murdered, she more than likely would step in. And if that means using her gun, she might. And guess what? Because defending ourselves, if we were in that situation, my family probably would have been murdered. And in saying that, I just want you to know that there are consequences to every action. So if you choose to make the stand, be ready to face the consequences. Make peace with the fact that the world is not just. But at the end of the day, you can sleep at night knowing you did the right thing. Because that's what it's going to take to right this ship. The right thing isn't always nice and fuzzy. It's often ugly. It often hurts. But think about the long-term price that we will pay if good men do nothing. I've heard some news anchors ask some pretty stupid questions. Was he armed?
Was he accused or was he being suspected of committing some kind of a violent crime? What do we know about him?
Well, and that is an important question. And then, of course, when I first saw that video, that's the question I had was he armed? Were police trying to arrest him because of some violent crime? And again, police say that there was a forgery in progress.
Why is this a question? Is it a crime to be armed? It is most certainly not. It is our constitutional right. And it is one that every one of you should not take lightly. Because of situations like this, Mr. Floyd was unarmed, wrote a bad check, and ended up dying. He was not resisting, even if he was at first. By the time he stopped resisting, they should have gave him room to breathe. That is the way law works. And that is why if someone comes in my house and I shoot them running on the way out, I will get charged with a crime. The goal is to stop the behavior. It is not a crime to be armed. And I'm tired of that being a question. I'm tired of that being a partisan issue. It is not a partisan issue to protect yourself. It is your God-given right. So to anyone and everyone, I would say this: be armed. Practice your self-defense. War game this stuff in your head. Because the next time you see something like this, you shouldn't be recording it. If there are some people recording it, great. Take out your phone. Call the supervisor. If you can't get to the supervisor, call the main police line. If you still can't get anything done and someone is about to lose their life, step in. Know that there are consequences. Know that you might be putting yourself, your life at risk. But at the end of the day, right is right and wrong is wrong. We cannot let people be murdered by the government for a situation that the government created. Stand up, America. Wake up and take your freedom. Take your rights and use them. The Declaration said it is not just your right, it is your duty. But that is the American spirit. That is what America was built on. The blood of people who were not afraid to stand up. And to the Floyd family, I will be praying. Nothing can replace George Floyd. No matter what happens to these officers, they will get to live their lives. They'll get to get new jobs. If they serve time, then they'll serve their 4 or 5 years in some separate part of a jail where cops can be protected because because the people already in the jail will probably kill them. But at the end of the day, they're going to continue living. And George will not. Over a situation that the government created.